All right. So moving past our little technical glitch, let me ask the question again. So do you have experience managing suppliers?
Yes. I do not have experience managing suppliers, but I do have experience dealing with suppliers. In my old role, when I was a validation engineer, I dealt with pedal suppliers, so I needed to order pedals to test essentially. So I would do the orders, the shipping and receiving, um, dealt with all of that paperwork as well. So that's the experience I have with suppliers, but managing them, no.
So with this relationship, if there were quality issues, were you identifying those and communicating those back to the supplier?
Yes. So if because I was doing a specific test that was government regulated at the time, or it's still being regulated, but during that time I would find issues with the pedal where it didn't meet like our specs according to the test that I was doing. So I would communicate that to the supplier um and yeah, go down that route. Although as a test validation engineer, I didn't deal with I guess the decision making of that. That was my lead who would deal with that aspect of it. But I do have experience in that area.
Okay. Yeah, because this would be, within your cluster, the um, decisions about dispositioning the um, non-compliant material. You'd work with the supply chain team to coordinate RMAs and that sort of thing, but that would actually ultimately end up being your decision on whether or not to pursue corrections with the supplier. So, uh, but it
Okay.
sounds like you've similar experience with that. Um, and then can you tell me a little bit about your background in statistical analysis?
Yes. So I'm looking down here because I have my portfolio here with some notes. Um, but some of my experience with statistical analysis was specifically more in the calibration side of engineering, where I calibrated diagnostics, diagnostics to be more specific, and in order for the diagnostic to turn on your engine light, you I wasn't I'm calibrating this engine light to turn on at the appropriate time. So it can't turn on falsely, and I also can't not detect the diagnostic. So in order to detect a diagnostic, I had to do it's called figure of merit. I don't know if that's something that that you're familiar with. It's statistical analysis. It's called FOM. Um, where essentially the diagnostic can has to pass at a certain with a certain delta. So if I were to have um, like infinite FOM, infinite like zero detection, essentially, that's wrong because I can't not ever detect the diagnostic. So I have experience creating macros to basically run my data, my test data into this macro and able to calculate the figure of merit. That way I don't false detect or I don't not detect. Um, but that's the pretty much the statistical analysis that I have experience with.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, have you used Minitab or have you primarily been using other software?
I didn't use Minitab, although I do know what it is. I've used it in college, but typically we would have other tools that within my company we have a tools team where we kind of have like our own applications that somebody basically makes a macro and then there's a tool engineer who creates it into like a more prettier version of a macro where there's nice buttons and all that stuff. So that's pretty much what is used.
Neat. So
Mhm.
do those kind of programs have to be validated? Like, do you have to do software validations on those?
Yeah, so typically um we follow because we deal with the government, there's regulations that obviously need to be met. So within those regulations, there's statistical analysis that is involved as well and discussed. So typically the way it works is we create a tool, and then because we have a contact within the government, in our case, it's CARB, and EPA, California Air and Resource Board, and EPA is here in Ann Arbor. So we have contacts there. So we just send them our tool, have them kind of take a look at it, and they'll, say, okay, yep, like this is valid for usage. So that's kind of like the validation process that we go through.
Okay. Yeah, because in medical device, any software tools we have need to be validated. So that
Mhm.
can be a little bit of a barrier with introducing new tools because for every new tool you make or significant change you make to an existing tool, you have to then revalidate, which is can be quite a process.
True.
Um, so I know that you mentioned that you do, I see you do mentoring and um, you volunteer. So, how comfortable do you feel with training within context of this role, training personnel to updated SOPs and work instructions that are related to your assigned product lines?
I think that's something I'm very comfortable with. And I moved a lot around GM, have had different roles in different areas, and within every role, I've always mentored someone. I was always like the person of contact um, when someone new was joining the team. So I think that's something I'm very comfortable with because I have a lot of experience like on the technical side of things, within engineering. But I also feel that because I mentor outside of GM, outside of engineering, I mentor within like my community. In Detroit, high school students, middle school students. I'm also able to kind of communicate people in that, kind of on a more like emotional, I guess you could say, or more empathetic way. Kind of try to connect with them, to kind of explain to them what I do as an engineer, and how to kind of get to college, apply for internships, mentoring them in that type of way.
Okay.
So I feel like with those experiences, I'd be comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds good because this role, with some of the SOP updates that roll out, you would need to uh, communicate to people from operators on the production floor all the way up to like senior executive management for some of these. So your reach could be very broad. So it sounds like that shouldn't be um, any kind of trouble for you based on, what you do in and outside of work. So I think that would be um, I think that'd be good. And then one last thing. Have you participated in or conducted any internal or external audits?
I have not. That's something I don't have experience with, but that's something I'm more than willing to learn. And as I mentioned before, since I'm trying to grow within my career, I feel like that would be a great tool to have. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as far as audits go, we can start you off within the internal audit team and
Or
get,
I apologize. Are you saying have I been audited before, or have I audited? I guess I interpreted the question as if have I ever audited someone?
Either or, I mean,
Okay. Yeah,
getting
I have
audited,
been,
doing audits.
yeah, I have been audited before, within like the compliance and calibration, all the other roles I have been audited. So I do have experience there, but I have not audited or been in that type of position. So,
Yeah,
but yeah.
no, that's definitely something that we can, you know, work you up to speed on. Because that's something that, we can start you on the internal audits team, put you in as um one of the um people in the um audit room when we get audited by external auditors, so you can be there and experience it and kind of figure out what those are all about. So, yeah, that I think would, you know, ideally we'd like someone who's, you know, been in and performed audits, but that honestly, we have a very successful path of getting people into um, the position where they're comfortable, leading a supplier audit, at a supplier site. So we've got a path for that. So we can work with that.
Mm.
And let me just make sure I don't have any other questions that I have left off. Yeah, so um it sounds like this would be a promising role for you. So what are your thoughts at the end of this?
Yeah, I definitely feel like like I mentioned before, I think I'd be a great fit to the team. I think this role really aligns well with something that I'm looking for. Um, and I hope to hear back from you and your team soon. And um, yeah, I think it'd be something that I'm more than willing to learn and grow with this new role. And I feel like it'd be the next career move for me for sure.
Yeah, sounds good. And we should be reaching out to you shortly.
Yeah, I did have some questions.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I wrote some down. So I know you mentioned like what you're looking for in an employer, but could you kind of also describe like what the company culture is and how it looks like?
Yeah, so as a medical device company, our priority is enriching the lives of um, the people in our community. So that starts with our own internal culture. So for employees, we have a bunch of various programs for wellness that we really think emphasize, like they align with our emphasis on, creating wellness within the community and ourselves. So with that, we have, our generous benefits package. We offer unlimited PTO on a permissive basis because we do really emphasize that work-life balance. Because how can we expect other people to, you know, do to feel better if we can't also have that in our lives? So, it's a lot of making sure that you know, our internal personnel are, you know, having a good work-life balance so that way they are in their best state of mind to be able to um, produce good for our community. So, our culture is very focused on that. We have a program where you can take normal business hours as volunteer hours and work with an outreach program. We have a couple that we work with in the community, but if you have one that you would prefer to work with, we can just we'll have to do an approval on it, but you know, so long as it's legit, usually those get accepted fairly easily. And we also have um, one of the things that we do is on Arbor Day, we go out and the entire plant shuts down, and we go out and work with a sustainability partner. So we go out and plant trees because one of the aspects of creating a better community is improving the natural world which we live in, which we also work with companies that meet certain sustainability standards. And we're um, very selective of what suppliers we bring in, and they do have to meet these specific environmental standards as well as the medical device standards. So, a lot of it is focused on, it all comes back to how can we build a better community?
Okay. Yeah, I really like that. I like that a lot. Another question I also had was, um, so like, what would you say are some areas that within this department that kind of need improvement, or like some areas that um, are kind of, I guess I would say, like kind of some weaker sore spot areas that you can kind of show need some help to improve in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so one of the issues we've run into is making sure that everybody has a fair um, amount on their plate and making sure that everybody's bandwidth is manageable. And that's one of the reasons we're bringing in this new QE position, is to really help take pressure off of our existing quality engineering staff, because they're really really working, and they're working a little bit too hard. So, you know, it's not really fair to them that as the company grows, their workload grows as well. Like that, we should be increasing the number of people we have so everybody has a fair division of labor. So that's a thing that we've been struggling with, is just trying to manage, because right now everything seems a little bit frantic, but I know that once we get a new person in and started, that we'll get a much better balance across the team. And then if we're still seeing, people are at like 100% or 100+% capacity, we'll evaluate whether we need to bring in more staff. So, the good news is the company is growing. The bad news is our team hasn't grown with it yet. So we're we're
Right.
working on
Trying to
fixing that.
adjust. Right, right. Okay, that makes sense. I think the last question would be, like, within the company, do you think that there's room for growth? Like, if I were to able, is it easy to move within the company to like a different position, or like promotional moves and stuff like that?
Oh yeah. Like we definitely um prioritize internal movement over bringing in external talent if we can. So like we mentioned before, there are senior QEs that we kind of partner with the other quality engineers. So there's that path. There are leadership opportunities for like managing the quality assurance specialist team is a common, from the QE group, going into a leadership role that way, is that kind of thing is something that we see fairly frequently. And we do encourage it because with the internal growth and movement, it makes sense for both our employees and for the business. So we do definitely try and encourage people to look out for opportunities and to grow within the company.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. Well, those are all the questions I had. Do you know roughly when I'd hear back from you about the job position?
Yeah, should be no later than the end of next week.
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. It was lovely interviewing you.
Yes, thank you. Have a
Great.
good
Have a
one.
great day.
Yes, you too.